I hid my company's success from my parents. Their faces were shocking when I pulled up in my private jet. The day I graduated summa cum laude from MIT, my mother pulled me aside during the celebration dinner. With a practiced smile that never quite reached her eyes, she squeezed my hand and whispered, "All this education talk is wonderful, Sophia, but remember what really matters in life." I knew what was coming. The same speech I'd heard since I was old enough to understand words. A woman's greatest achievement is to marry well and build a beautiful home. She glanced meaningfully at my father, who was entertaining my extended family with stories about his law firm. "Look at what I've accomplished. Your father has provided everything we could ever need." I nodded, the weight of expectations settling on my shoulders like a designer shawl. Beautiful to others, suffocating to me. The summa cum laude hood around my neck suddenly felt tight, almost like a collar. 3 job offers from Silicon Valley's most prestigious tech companies sat unopened in my inbox. Google, Apple, Microsoft. All of them wanted me for my innovative algorithm work. Each email represented freedom, challenge, purpose. Each one promised a future where my brain, not my marital status, determined my worth. But when I mentioned the offers to my parents the next morning, my father's brow furrowed with genuine concern. "Sweetheart, why would you want to struggle in that cutthroat world? Those places will work you to death." He sipped his coffee, exchanging a knowing look with my mother. "Besides, Ryan Blackwell has been asking about you. His family owns half of Boston. That's the kind of future you deserve." Ryan Blackwell, the perfect catch according to my parents' social circle. Handsome, wealthy, from good stock, as my grandmother would say. We'd met at several charity galas, and I couldn't deny he was charming. But I'd never considered him as more than a pleasant acquaintance. 6 months later, I declined all 3 job offers. A year after that, I became Mrs. Ryan Blackwell in a ceremony that made the society pages and cost more than a small island. My parents beamed with pride throughout the entire event. I smiled through it all, playing the part of the blushing bride while mentally cataloging programming languages in alphabetical order to keep from screaming. Ryan wasn't a bad man. He was kind, generous, and genuinely seemed to adore me. Our 5-bedroom colonial in Brookline became the venue for dinner parties and charity functions. I mastered the art of flower arrangements, learned to make soufflés that never fell, and could discuss wine vintages with impressive accuracy. From the outside, I was the epitome of the perfect wife. "You hit the jackpot with her," my father-in-law told Ryan at one of our Sunday brunches, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Smart as a whip but knows her place. Not like these career women who can't keep a home." The room erupted in approving laughter. I fake smiled so hard my cheeks ached, excusing myself to check on dessert. In the kitchen, I gripped the marble countertop until my knuckles turned white, breathing deeply to keep the tears at bay. It was in that moment, staring at my reflection in the polished silver serving tray, that something inside me snapped. Not in a way that broke me, but in a way that finally set me free. That night, after Ryan fell asleep, I slipped out of bed and padded silently to the laundry room in the basement. It was the one place no one ever bothered me, the one room my mother-in-law didn't inspect during her weekly visits. From behind the detergent shelf, I pulled out the laptop I'd purchased with cash withdrawn in small amounts over several months. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, trembling slightly. Then they began to dance. 3 hours later, the basic framework for Wanderwork was born, a productivity platform I'd conceptualized during those endless charity luncheons. Something specifically designed for remote teams working across time zones, with innovative notification algorithms that recognized productivity patterns and optimal collaboration windows. When dawn broke, I carefully hid the laptop again, made coffee, and prepared Ryan's favorite breakfast. He kissed me on his way out the door, complimenting the blueberry pancakes and asking if I needed his credit card for the day's shopping. "No need," I said with a genuine smile this time. "I think I'll just stay home and do some reading." Reading code, that is. And writing it. And reimagining my life, line by line. Over the next 6 months, I developed a seamless routine. When Ryan was at work, I coded. When my parents or in-laws visited, I was the perfect hostess, but the moment they left, I was back at my secret workstation. Sometimes I worked in the laundry room, sometimes in the guest bedroom closet, occasionally even in the garden shed. I connected with freelancers from around the world through anonymous profiles: a UI designer in Tokyo, a back-end developer in Berlin, a marketing specialist in Singapore. We communicated through encrypted channels, and I paid them from a business account I'd set up under a shell company. My MIT network, whom I had never completely abandoned, provided quiet introductions to potential angel investors. "You look tired, dear," my mother noted during one of her surprise visits. "Are you and Ryan trying for a baby? It's exhausting, but so worth it." I stirred my tea and deflected. "Just didn't sleep well. Too much coffee yesterday, I think." What I couldn't tell her was that I'd been up until 4 a.m. closing a $400,000 seed investment deal with a venture capitalist who didn't care that I was a woman, only that my prototype had outperformed every competitor in beta testing. At family gatherings, I became a master of disguise. On the outside, Sophia Blackwell, trophy wife, nodding along to conversations about interior decorators and vacation homes. On the inside, Sophia Chun, my maiden name and now my business identity, founder and CEO, mentally solving scaling issues and refining user experience flows. "You're so lucky," my cousin Jennifer told me at Thanksgiving, gesturing around at the immaculate dining room that Ryan's wealth had provided. "Some of us have to work for a living." If only she knew that while they were all watching football after dinner, I'd be pretending to nap while actually reviewing quarterly projections that showed Wanderwork was on track to break $1 million in revenue by year's end. The silken cage my parents had designed for me was becoming my greatest cover. No one suspects the housewife. No one questions when she disappears to try a new recipe or organize the linen closet. No one imagines that behind her perfect makeup and carefully curated wardrobe beats the heart of an entrepreneur who stays up late reading market analyses instead of romance novels. And as Wanderwork began to gain traction in the tech world, I realized I had created something no one in my family could have imagined. Not just a company, but a secret identity. A purpose that was entirely my own. The woman who smiled graciously when her mother-in-law rearranged her kitchen cabinets was the same woman who firmly rejected a $3 million buyout offer, knowing her company was worth 10 times that amount. The dutiful daughter who nodded along to her parents' advice about keeping a husband happy was secretly leading team meetings with executives from 3 continents. Sometimes I felt guilty for the deception, especially with Ryan, who genuinely believed I spent my days planning dinner parties and charity events. But the thought of revealing myself, of facing the disapproval, the judgment, the inevitable attempts to control or diminish what I'd built, kept me silent. Until the day everything changed. My morning routine became a masterclass in deception. I'd wake up at 5 a.m., answer critical emails from international team members, then slip back into bed before Ryan's alarm went off at 7. By the time he left for work, the scent of freshly baked bread would fill our home. A bread machine with a timer was my first investment in my cover story. "You're such a domestic goddess," Ryan's mother cooed during one of her weekly inspections. "I was just telling the ladies at the club how you make everything from scratch." I smiled graciously while mentally reviewing the pitch deck I'd be presenting to investors that afternoon, from the laundry room, with my laptop perched precariously on top of the ironing board. The irony wasn't lost on me. While they thought I was perfecting my banana bread recipe, I was closing a $750,000 investment round. Wanderwork was growing exponentially, our user base doubling every month. Remote work was becoming more mainstream, and our platform solved problems other productivity tools hadn't even identified yet. Juggling 2 identities became increasingly complex. Once, during a family dinner, my father-in-law asked about the stock market. "What do you think about these tech startups, Ryan? Any worth investing in?" Under the table, I was literally signing off on our company's first $1 million contract via my phone. I almost laughed out loud at the absurdity. Ryan shrugged. "Most are overvalued, but there's this new productivity platform that's getting buzz. Wanderwork, I think it's called." I choked on my wine. "Are you all right, dear?" My mother patted my back with concern. "Wrong pipe. I managed to gasp, heart racing. How did Ryan know about Wanderwork? Anyway, my mother continued as if nothing had happened. Sophia doesn't need to worry about such things. Ryan takes care of all that, don't you? In their minds, I was incapable of understanding business, let alone running one. The woman they saw arranging flowers and planning dinner parties couldn't possibly comprehend investment rounds and scalability strategies. Speaking of taking care of things, my mother added, leaning forward conspiratorially, isn't it time you two started thinking about children? Sophia isn't getting any younger. The familiar pressure descended. In their world, my biological clock wasn't just ticking, it was a countdown to my only real purpose. We're not quite ready, I replied with practiced ease. Well, don't wait too long, my aunt chimed in. Your cousin Patricia just had her third. Such a blessing. Under the table, I was simultaneously texting my CTO about a critical software update while smiling and nodding at pregnancy advice I had no intention of following. At least not yet. Not until Wanderwork was stable enough that I could step back if I wanted to. The company continued to flourish in secret. We expanded to 15 employees across 7 countries. I conducted video meetings from the guest bathroom, the one place I could lock the door without raising suspicion. Our platform was featured in tech blogs and startup newsletters. You look tired lately, Ryan observed one evening as I prepared dinner. You're not pushing yourself too hard with all those charity committees, are you? If only he knew that I'd been up since 4 a.m. resolving a server crisis that threatened to take down our entire platform. Or that the charity gala I'd attended last week was actually a tech conference where I spoke on a panel about the future of remote work, wearing a wig and using my maiden name, of course. I'm fine, I assured him. Just trying some new meditation techniques. They say it disrupts your sleep at first. The lies were becoming exhausting, but they were necessary. My family had made it abundantly clear what they thought a woman's place was. And it wasn't in a C-suite. My breaking point came during a baby shower for Ryan's sister. As I arranged perfectly frosted cupcakes on a tiered stand, my mother-in-law approached with her friend. This is the daughter-in-law I was telling you about, she said proudly. She gave up a career in computers to be a proper wife. Isn't that refreshing? Her friend nodded approvingly. So many young women today have their priorities backward. They'll understand when they're older and alone. I smiled tightly, excusing myself to check on something in the kitchen. Instead, I locked myself in the pantry and took 3 deep breaths before quietly making a business call that authorized our expansion into European markets. When I returned with a plate of finger sandwiches, my sister-in-law was opening my gift, a handcrafted baby blanket I'd commissioned from an artisan in Peru, paid for with my own money from Wanderwork. It's gorgeous, she gushed. Sophia, you have so much time for these thoughtful touches. Sometimes I'm jealous of your life. If she only knew that while she envied my free time, I was running a company now valued at $8 million. That beneath my perfectly manicured nails were fingers that had typed thousands of lines of code. That behind my understanding smile was a mind calculating growth projections and market strategies. The double life was taking its toll. Something would have to give. My carefully constructed double life collapsed on an ordinary Tuesday morning. I was in the kitchen preparing Ryan's favorite blueberry pancakes when he walked in, still in his bathrobe, holding his tablet with an expression I couldn't quite read. Interesting article in Tech Insider this morning, he said casually, sliding onto a bar stool at our kitchen island. They're featuring breakthrough startups changing the remote work landscape. My hand froze mid-flip with the spatula. The pancake burned. Is something burning? Ryan asked, but his eyes never left my face. I turned off the stove with a trembling hand. Just distracted. Sophia Chen, he continued, turning the tablet toward me. Founder and CEO of Wanderwork, revolutionizing how global teams collaborate across time zones. He paused, studying me. Looks remarkably like my wife. There it was. The moment I'd both dreaded and, if I'm honest, secretly anticipated. My secret identity splashed across one of the biggest tech publications, complete with a photo from the conference I'd spoken at last month. I'd removed my wedding ring and used my maiden name, but it was undeniably me. Ryan, 2 years, he said quietly. For 2 years, you've been building a multi-million-dollar company from our home, and you never told me. I expected anger, betrayal, accusations. Instead, his expression held something far more devastating. Hurt. Why didn't you trust me? He asked. The question knocked the wind out of me. Trust had never been the issue, not with Ryan. It was everyone else. The weight of expectations, the suffocating certainty that my ambitions would be minimized, patronized, controlled. I was afraid. I admitted, the truth finally spilling out. Not of you, specifically. Of what would happen when everyone found out. My parents, your parents. Their reaction. Ryan set the tablet down. So, you thought I'd side with them? That I'd try to stop you? Wouldn't you have? I challenged, years of hidden frustration bubbling to the surface. You grew up in the same world they did, where wives are decorative, not ambitious, where a woman's greatest accomplishment is raising children, not companies. He was quiet for so long I thought he might walk out. Then he surprised me. I married you because you were the smartest person I'd ever met, he said finally. I used to wonder what happened to that brilliant MIT graduate. I thought, maybe you were just playing a role to make my parents happy. I never imagined this. He gestured to the tablet, where my professional headshot stared back at us alongside glowing reviews of Wanderwork. You're incredible, he said, replacing the hurt in his voice. What you've built, while hosting dinner parties and attending charity galas and dealing with my mother's weekly inspections, it's nothing short of remarkable. Something uncoiled inside me, a tension I'd been carrying for so long I'd forgotten what it felt like to be without it. You're not angry? I asked cautiously. I'm stunned. I'm a little hurt you felt you couldn't tell me. But angry. He shook his head. How could I be angry about you being exactly who I always knew you were? Tears formed, and for once, I didn't try to hide them. I made my first million 6 months ago, I confessed. My second last month. We're projected to hit 20 million in valuation by year's end. Ryan let out a low whistle. And here I was, proud of my quarterly bonus. We laughed, the sound breaking through years of pretense. I want to hear everything, he said, reaching for my hand. The real everything. No more hiding. For the first time since our wedding, I told someone the complete truth. How Wanderwork began as a simple idea and grew into something that was changing how global teams collaborated. The investors who believed in me, the challenges of scaling, the thrill of solving problems no one else had tackled. Ryan listened, really listened, asking thoughtful questions about growth strategies and market positioning. The financial analyst in him was clearly impressed by the numbers. The husband in him was proud. So, what happens now? He asked when I'd finished. Are you going public with this? As yourself, I mean. I hesitated. I don't know. My parents. We'll have to accept who you really are, he finished firmly. But it's your choice. Whatever you decide, I'm with you. His support was like oxygen after years of holding my breath. I'm not ready for everyone to know, I decided. Not yet. There's still so much to do, and once it gets out. Ryan nodded, understanding. Then we keep it between us. For now. He became my confidant, my sounding board, sometimes even my assistant, covering for me when family obligations threatened to interfere with important meetings. While outwardly nothing changed, we still hosted dinners, attended family functions, smiled politely through lectures about my biological clock. Privately, everything was different. My parents think you're such a good provider, I told him one night as we reviewed Wanderwork's expansion plans in our bedroom. If they only knew. Ryan grinned. Let them think whatever they want. We know the truth. And for a while that was enough. 6 months after Ryan discovered my secret, life had fallen into a new rhythm. At home, we were partners in every sense, discussing business strategies over breakfast, reviewing investor presentations after dinner. In public, we maintained the charade. Ryan the successful financial analyst, me the devoted housewife. The arrangement worked perfectly until Ryan's younger sister, Melissa, announced at Sunday dinner that she'd accepted a position as marketing director at a Fortune 500 company. That's wonderful, dear, my mother-in-law said, though her smile seemed forced. Though I hope this doesn't mean you're putting off starting a family. Melissa straightened her shoulders. Actually, I'm focusing on my career for now. The position comes with significant responsibilities. My father-in-law harumphed. Well, it's a phase. You'll grow out of it when you meet the right man. I caught Ryan's eye across the table. We'd heard this rhetoric countless times before, but now it stung differently. Not just for me, but for Melissa too. It's not a phase, Dad, she replied coolly. I've worked hard for this opportunity. Of course you have, my mother interjected soothingly, patting Melissa's hand. And it's wonderful to have a little hobby before settling down. Hobby. The word hung in the air like a slap. Beside me, Ryan tensed. It's hardly a hobby, Mom, Melissa objected. I'll be overseeing a team of 15 people and managing multi-million-dollar campaigns. My mother waved dismissively. Yes, very impressive. But let's be realistic about priorities. Watching Melissa's confidence deflate was like looking in a mirror from years ago. That bright-eyed MIT graduate, bursting with potential, being told her dreams were secondary to marriage. I think it's fantastic, I said suddenly, drawing all eyes to me. Melissa's accomplishments deserve real recognition. Melissa shot me a grateful look, but my mother-in-law merely chuckled. That's sweet of you, Sophia. Though between us, she lowered her voice conspiratorially, I've always thought these career women are compensating for something. Not everyone can be as fulfilled as you are in the traditional role. Beside me, Ryan nearly choked on his wine. If she only knew that the traditional wife she so admired had closed a $5 million funding round just yesterday. Actually, my father added, helping himself to more roast beef, maybe Melissa could give you some tips, Sophia. You're home all day. You could probably use something to occupy your time. Ryan's hand found mine under the table, squeezing it in silent support as I smiled tightly. I keep busy, I assured them. But imagine, my mother said wistfully, if you had Melissa's drive. You might have made something of yourself too. Made something of myself. The words burned like acid. My company now employed 40 people across 12 countries. Our valuation had hit $30 million last quarter. I'd made something beyond anything they could comprehend. That's enough, Ryan said quietly, his tone uncharacteristically firm. Sophia contributes in ways you don't see. An awkward silence fell over the table. Ryan rarely contradicted his parents. Of course she does, my father-in-law recovered quickly. She runs a beautiful home. That's what I meant. Perhaps, my mother smiled indulgently. One day you can help Melissa run her little business, Sophia, since you're home all day with nothing but time on your hands. Her little business. My blood boiled as I watched Melissa's expression fall further. The condescension was unmistakable. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about every woman whose ambitions were diminished, whose achievements were trivialized. Maybe, I replied, my voice steadier than I felt. Though I doubt marketing campaigns are my strength. What is your strength, dear? My aunt asked with faux innocence. Besides keeping Ryan happy, of course. The table erupted in laughter, the kind that cuts rather than heals. Even Melissa joined in, her earlier pride now buried under family expectations. That night, as Ryan and I drove home in silence, I realized something crucial. I wasn't just hiding to be humble. I was hiding to protect my peace, my creation, from people who would never truly value it, or me. I'm sorry about tonight, Ryan said finally, reaching for my hand. Don't be, I replied, staring out at the passing streetlights. It was illuminating. They don't mean harm, he offered weakly. They just don't understand. They don't want to understand. I corrected him. There's a difference. Wonderwork had recently been approached about a speaking engagement at an international tech conference in Switzerland. I'd been hesitant, worried about exposure. But after tonight, something had shifted inside me. I think it's time, I said, turning to Ryan. Not for everyone to know. Not yet. But I'm tired of hiding who I am, what I've built. Ryan studied me for a long moment before nodding. Whatever you decide, I'm with you. My phone buzzed with an email. The conference organizers, asking for confirmation. With a deep breath, I typed my response. I'll be there. Little did I know that this decision would change everything. The International Future of Work conference in Zurich was a turning point. For the first time, I stood on stage as Sophia Chun, not hiding behind avatars or pseudonyms, presenting Wonderwork to the world's tech elite. When my keynote received a standing ovation, something crystallized within me. I was done diminishing myself to make others comfortable. Miss Chun, your platform's growth is remarkable, a reporter said during the post-keynote press conference. What's next for Wonderwork? Global expansion. I replied without hesitation. We're opening offices in Singapore, Berlin, and Sao Paulo next quarter. Later that evening, at a private dinner with potential investors, I received an offer that made my head spin. $150 million for a majority stake in Wonderwork. The number was staggering, but it wasn't the money that kept me awake that night in my hotel suite. It was the realization that I'd built something truly valuable, not just financially, but something that was changing how people worked worldwide. I called Ryan at 3 a.m. his time. They want to buy a majority stake, I told him, pacing the suite in my bathrobe. $150 million, Ryan. His whistle came through the phone clearly. That's incredible. Are you going to accept? I paused by the window, looking out at the glittering lights of Zurich.
No.
Wonderwork is just getting started. I'm not ready to give up control. Then don't, he said simply. It's your company. Your vision. My company. My vision. Words I'd never been able to say openly to my family. There's something else, I continued. The conference organizers have arranged private transportation for keynote speakers to their next destinations. Private jets, Ryan. Fancy, he chuckled. Where are you headed? I took a deep breath. That's the thing. Your mother called while I was here. Your cousin William is getting married this weekend, remember? The whole family will be there. Ryan said, understanding immediately. And you told her you'd be returning from a spa retreat tomorrow.
Exactly.
I was going to book a commercial flight back, but I trailed off, an idea forming. But Ryan prompted, what if I don't hide anymore? What if I take that private jet and fly straight home? The real me, not the version of me they want to see. Silence stretched between us for a long moment. Are you sure? Ryan finally asked. You know how they'll react. I thought about Melissa's deflated expression at dinner, about my mother's dismissive comments, about years of hiding my accomplishments to protect fragile egos and outdated expectations. I'm sure, I said firmly. It's time. The next morning, I informed the conference coordinators of my change in plans. Instead of flying to London for meetings, I'd be returning to Boston. As the CEO of a company now valued at over $100 million, my request was quickly accommodated. The Gulfstream G650 gleamed in the morning sunlight as I approached the private airfield. My assistant, Emma, whom I'd hired 6 months earlier when operations became too complex to manage alone, handled the logistics while I prepared mentally for what was to come. The pilot says we'll land at Boston Private Air Terminal at approximately 3 p.m. local time, Emma informed me. I've arranged for a car to meet us. Perfect, I replied, smoothing down my tailored blazer. And the family gathering? Starts at 4 p.m. at your in-laws' estate. We'll arrive right on time. As the jet soared over the Atlantic, I reviewed quarterly reports and finalized acquisition plans for a smaller competitor. The irony wasn't lost on me. While my family believed I was at a spa finding myself, I was solidifying my position as one of tech's rising stars. Ryan messaged as we began our descent. Everyone's here. Mom keeps asking when you'll arrive. Dad says you should have scheduled your spa treatments better. I smiled, typing back. I'm about to land. And trust me, my timing is perfect. The private terminal was a model of efficiency. Within minutes of landing, we were in a sleek black SUV heading toward the Blackwell estate in Brookline. Emma briefed me on upcoming meetings while I gazed out the window, a strange calm settling over me. Are you nervous? She asked as we turned onto the tree-lined drive leading to my in-laws' sprawling colonial. Oddly, no, I replied. I feel free. Through the tinted windows, I could see them gathered on the expansive lawn. My parents, Ryan's parents, aunts, uncles, cousins, all dressed in their Sunday best for William's engagement celebration. Ryan stood slightly apart, checking his watch, his eyes scanning the drive. "Miss Chun," the driver announced, "we've arrived." I took a deep breath and nodded to Emma. "Let's do this." As the car pulled to a stop at the foot of the Grand Lawn, conversations halted. All eyes turned to the unfamiliar vehicle with tinted windows. Then the driver opened the door, and everything changed. I stepped out first, dressed not in the floral dresses they were accustomed to seeing me in, but in a power suit that had earned compliments from tech CEOs earlier that day. Emma followed with my portfolio and phone, efficiently updating me on an incoming call as we walked up the path. The family stood frozen, expressions ranging from confusion to shock. Ryan, however, was beaming. My mother was the first to recover. "Sophia? What on earth?" But her words died as she looked past me to what had captured everyone else's attention: the private jet visible on the landing strip of the small airfield adjacent to the estate, its door emblazoned with the Wanderwork logo I designed myself 3 years ago in a laundry room. The silence that enveloped the perfectly manicured lawn was deafening. My father was the first to break it, his voice laced with confusion and a hint of anger. "Sophia, what is the meaning of this? Where did you rent that plane from?" He gestured wildly toward the Gulf Stream visible in the distance. "And who is this woman?" Emma straightened beside me, professional to her core. "I'm Ms. Chen's executive assistant. It's a pleasure to meet Sophia's family after hearing so much about you all." My mother's eyes widened. "Executive assistant?" She looked me up and down, taking in my tailored Armani suit and the confidence I no longer bothered to hide. "Sophia, darling, what kind of joke is this?" I smiled, for the first time not holding back. "It's not a joke, Mother. And to answer your question, Dad, I didn't rent the jet. I own the company that owns the jet." Gasps rippled through the assembled family members. Ryan moved to stand beside me, his hand finding the small of my back in silent support. "Own a company?" My father-in-law scoffed. "Ryan, what is she talking about?" Ryan's smile matched mine. "She's talking about Wanderwork, the productivity platform revolutionizing remote work globally. Current valuation, just over $100 million. And she built it from scratch." That's impossible," my mother stammered. "You're a housewife. You bake banana bread." "Actually," I replied calmly, "I've never baked banana bread. That was a bread machine with a timer. While you all thought I was planning dinner parties and attending charity galas, I was building a tech empire from our laundry room." My father's face had turned an alarming shade of red. But your degree, you never used it." "I used every bit of it," I corrected him, "and more. I've been using it every day for the past 3 years while you assumed I was incapable of anything beyond choosing curtain fabrics." 3 years. My mother looked stricken. "You've been lying to us for 3 years?" "Not lying," I clarified. "Protecting something I built from people who made it abundantly clear they didn't believe women should build anything more complicated than a souffle." Melissa pushed her way through the stunned family members, her eyes wide with admiration. "Wait, you're that Sophia Chen? The Wanderwork founder? I use your platform every day at work. You're a legend in the tech world." The cognitive dissonance on display was almost comical. The same family members who had patronized me for years were now looking from Melissa to me in utter confusion. But how? My aunt, who had been so condescending about my strengths, now looked utterly lost. "How did you manage to build a company in secret?" With intelligence, determination, and the convenient fact that none of you thought to question what I was actually doing with my time, I answered honestly. "You were all so convinced that I was exactly what you wanted me to be, the perfect, submissive housewife, that you never bothered to see who I really was." My father-in-law, always quick to recover, stepped forward with an artificial smile. "Well, this is certainly a surprise. But what wonderful news. Ryan, you should have told us your wife was such an entrepreneur. Perhaps we could discuss how to integrate Wanderwork into the family investment portfolio." I have some connections that... No, I interrupted firmly. Wanderwork isn't a family business. It's my business. I built it without your connections, without your approval, and without your interference. And that's how it will stay. Now, Sophia, my mother began in that patronizing tone I knew too well. Don't be hasty. Your father and I could advise you. Business is complicated, and I closed a $15 million Series B funding round last month. I cut in. I negotiated the acquisition of our biggest competitor for $30 million, and I turned down a buyout offer of $150 million yesterday because I know my company is worth more. Trust me, Mother, I understand business just fine. The family members who had once mocked me now crowded around, suddenly eager to align themselves with my success. My cousin Jonathan, who worked at a struggling startup, cornered me by the champagne table. I've always admired your intellect, Sophia, he said smoothly. Perhaps we could discuss some synergies between our companies? I'd make an excellent advisor. I already have advisors, I replied. Highly qualified ones. As the afternoon wore on, the truth of my double life emerged in full. Some family members were genuinely impressed. Others were clearly resentful. My parents vacillated between pride and betrayal, unable to reconcile their daughter the housewife with Sophia Chen, tech visionary. You could have told us, my father said later, hurt evident in his voice. Could I? I challenged gently. When you told me that a woman's greatest achievement was marrying well. When you insisted I decline job offers to focus on building a home, would you have supported me then? His silence was answer enough. As the sun set over the estate, Ryan and I walked hand in hand toward the waiting car, Emma efficiently handling last-minute business calls. Was it worth it? Ryan asked quietly. The reveal? I looked back at my family, still processing, still adjusting their worldview to accommodate this new reality. Absolutely, I replied. I didn't build all this just to share it with people who couldn't see my worth. I still host family dinners now and then, but they're catered by five-star chefs in my smart estate. And I still wear an apron sometimes, but only when I feel like it. On my own terms, in my own home, running my own empire.
Just as it should be.